So here we are, sharing secrets of the soil with me, your host, Regen Ray. Hello, soil lovers. Regen Ray here, and welcome to another episode of Secrets of the Soil. I'm really excited about today's guest because I've just been reading the bio and there is so much yum yum for your tum tum, and that was in the notes. So I wanted to make sure that I shared that. But today's guest has been traveling the world and, sharing the love of soil far and wide. Today's guest was also unfortunate to experience the fires that happened in their hometown recently in Australia, and that passion for the soil and to change the world just grew and grew. Sharlene, Cohen, welcome to the show.
Hey, Ray. How you going? Thanks for having me.
I'm so good. I really wanted to put that in there because I read that and giggled this morning and went, I got to use that yum yum for your tum tum. So there is just so much goodies that you've explained that we can talk about today. And we might have to put this into like 3 episodes with the amount of content. So soil lovers, stick with us because this is going to be a juicy episode. So share with the soil lovers a little bit about your business, which is called Urban Rewild.
Yeah. So hi, soil lovers. So Urban Rewild basically came from the ashes of the bushfires. So I've always been passionate about my environment and the planet. And I think once the bushfires came through our shire, the Eurobodalla Shire, it was a New Year's Eve, 2019. And it was we live on a cliff top. Lucky to live on a cliff top, and would never have expected the fires to come as close as they did. And after that devastation, I saw the amount of animals and insects and birds and everything that were relying on urban spaces and urban gardens to support them because we had lost so much bush that they had nowhere to go. And it was just an awakening to me that we have the opportunity and the obligation in our urban spaces to do whatever we can that is taken away from our, in the forest, in the bush by, urban expansion and then obviously all these climatic events that we're experiencing. And I have a native garden, and I probably didn't realize the impact that my native garden was actually, how important it actually was until those fires. So Urban Rewild came out of that, about going, well, there's opportunity in our urban spaces, not just in our backyards, but about greening our urban environments to actually support life, our life, and support the life of everything. So that's kind of like where it started, but then many things have evolved. And actually, I got very sick as well at that time. I suffered ecological grief. I didn't even know it was such a word.
Wow.
I couldn't stop crying. For 2 years that happened. Then I actually got really sick. The levels of stress, my body just virtually shut down on me. And so I got quite sick. So then, and then I did a nature-based therapy course as well as part of all of that. And basically that also made me aware of my passion for nature and the environment, and also how important it is to me and my heart and to everybody. And so that's kind of like how Urban Rewild started.
It's very interesting to hear your, the way that it explained that we are so connected to nature and we don't even realize it. And then when something like this and, it creates such a trauma that we then need to unpack that and it sheds light on how we are so connected. And even your realization, and I say this all the time, that real change happens in your own backyard. The fact that your backyard was contributing to the the ecological and biological footprint of that area. And if every neighbor and every property did something, it really compounds a lot.
It does.
And so it's, that was something that's happened in your own backyard. And then from this, you've decided to go and, travel the world and explore different parts. What led you to that? And where did you go and what were you doing there?
So I had this amazing attachment with Africa. I don't know, it might have been another life. Someone had suggested I did have another life in Africa, but I went to Africa in 2000 actually just before the bushfires was my first visit. Then I came back and then somebody said, oh, you've had another life in Africa. I went, oh, well, that's why I love this place.
Nice.
So I connected with some people on Facebook, and Facebook is not all bad.
I know.
And with some young people over there that are very passionate about conservation and in particular area in Uganda, Bahoma, which is home of the mountain gorillas, the largest remaining population of mountain gorillas.
Wow.
And so I decided that I needed to go there. And so with COVID and all of that, and then saving money because it was quite expensive, I went in December this year. And I just before that, though, I decided I wanted to plant some native species in Bahoma, some native trees, sorry. So we kind of like went about looking about how we're going to do that. Will we buy some land? Will we just get some land from some farmers and just offer them to plant some trees? In all the wash up, we end up buying some land in Uganda.
Wowzers, that's great.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And a whole lot cheaper to buy land in Uganda than it is here. Most of the land over there is cleared land. It has a terrible lot of Australian eucalyptus trees. 2014, a conservationist went over there and saw that they were clearing their countryside to plant food that they thought, well, okay, we want to stop the devastation and the reduction of animal population and extinction and so on. We need to get some more native vegetation back in. So this Australian scientist went over there and he encouraged them to plant Australian eucalyptus. And the purpose of that was to actually potentially go, well, we'll give you these trees, you can plant these. This should stop you from cutting down your own trees. Okay? But it didn't. So they continue to chop down their native trees because they use a lot of them for medicines as well. And they still need them for structures and so on. So they cut them down. And now they have quite a reasonable population of Australian eucalyptus gum trees, which is actually not good because they're not native, they're not endemic. So, yeah, so these trees are taking the moisture out of the soil and they're actually degrading the quality of the soil. And they grow food over there too. So they're relying on the quality of the soil. So I decided we need to take some action and plant some native trees. So on my small parcel of 1.5 acres, high up on the hill on Prayer Mountain in Bahoma, wow. We have planted over 1,000 native species. It's very exciting.
It is amazing.
And we got all the locals involved to do that. So we actually created water harvesting trenches. It's quite a steep block of land.
Wow.
So it was important to actually because there's no vegetation on any of this land anymore, obviously landslides is a big problem. So it was important for us to put water trenches across layers to ensure that when the water does come down, it doesn't just completely run off and create erosion, which there is a little bit of erosion, but it also collects the water in the trenches and it can sit in there for a period of time in the dry periods, and then it seeps down through the soil and then waters the trees.
Amazing. So, that's so great. That's so great. And did the locals come and help and like what was the atmosphere like when you were doing this, you know?
I'd love to share lots of photos and videos with all of that. It was amazing. So I employed young guys in particular that need money to go to school because education is not free. Wow. So through my contacts, I think we had 14 young men and myself and another lady digging trenches. And then we got the children involved from one of the local charities to come and plant the trees, which was probably one of the most significant parts because the education with the children is critical.
It's so amazing that you can go there and do such a positive project, but then it even has so many other positive ripple effects. You know, it's not like just planting the trees. It's that's such a, I think sometimes when I think about where we live, we're so removed because we have free healthcare, we have, or no, free access to, education and healthcare and all that. But others have to, earn that. And, by going there and planting trees, woo, what a ripple effect that can create.
And the other part of it's all about education with them for them to understand that they need these trees as much as the animals need trees. And so it's very much that circular economy of that understanding. So my passion's kind of like started with animals, that's, the protection of animals. But now I've kind of like gone, well, they're all, as we know, they're all attached and they all need each other. So, and obviously the soil is where it all starts. And West particular area, they actually have pretty good soil, other than where the eucalyptus trees are, that has taken a lot of, let's say, energy from the soil. The education of the children is so important. And they're becoming a lot more aware as well, which is very, very good.
Yeah, and it's right, the soil. And sometimes, I find with the lot of work that I've done is that people from less developed countries are more connected to the soil because that is their livelihood. It creates employment, it creates, the ability to grab some produce and go to the market and sell a couple of produce, and that feeds, the family for the week. Or you can barter and you can trade, and you kind of raised by the village mythology still is more near and dear. And I know that we get a lot of people joining Facebook groups and whatever from, Africa and India and all that, where they are really connected to the land, and it's very spiritual as well. It's definitely more that, caring, nurturing, rather than just yielding and
taking.
Yeah.
And just on that, like they are relying on their food daily. So they don't have supermarkets, so they grow what's in season. And they eat what's in season. They pick today and they eat today.
Wow.
And we're so removed from that. I went to our local farmers market in Maria, which celebrated 10 years yesterday. And it's all about localized food and localized produce within 160 kilometers of Maria itself. And that is that, they pick in the morning, they sell at the market at 3:00 and we're eating it. So that's kind of like, if we can get more of that connection and understanding. We're just so removed from it. We just know we'll always find food, but it's no guarantee. I mean, the Farmers Union of Australia is suggesting that, Australia could very well have a food shortage.
Yep.
And that's from the Farmers Association saying that, not from anybody else. So it's real. So we can be growing food in our backyard and if not, part of community gardens. I mean, they're a beautiful space for health, well-being, nurturing, and yum yum in your tum tum food.
Love that. And so we've talked about remote, Africa and your impacts over there, but it all really started here locally. So what are some of the projects that like Urban Rewilding is working on, and what's the role that it plays to, reactivate these native species in our urban spaces?
Yeah. So my background is a business background. So while my passion has been the environment, I've done a lot of volunteering in that space, but I'm not an ecologist and I'm not a horticulturalist or anything like that. But what I can bring is my business knowledge and experience on how to turn, say, a community garden, for example, into a more productive and sustainable space by thinking about your marketing, thinking about your community engagement, thinking about your volunteer. So what I've done is last year I ran a pilot project called the Green Community Garden Coaching Program, and I had 6 rural community gardens from the East Coast join that pilot. And they were gardens that they were all established except for one, and they were all about needing to invigorate. So usually people that set up community gardens are grassroots, are passionate about food and, like to get their hands dirty in that soil and smell that soil and all that beautiful stuff. Yes. But they may not have the other skills necessary to make sure that it's going to be sustainable. So that's what that pilot was about. It was about how you source volunteers, how do you maintain your volunteers, how do you get sponsors, because you need money. Let's be real, So yeah, how to market that, how to do community engagement. And so, yeah, that's kind of like what I'm leading into. And now I'm working with Sage, which is a local urban agriculture. Grow the Growers is their ethos. And I'm looking at their business model as well as a not-for-profit, and looking at from a helicopter view about how they can improve things as well. So I'm kind of like bringing my business skills into all of that.
Love that. I think that's really important to really identify those, because I feel like there's a lot of people that are in these spaces, and it's very common even from the farming world where, they're really good growers, they're good farmers, they know the land, it's fifth generation, but there's no business skills. There's no, everything's in their head and scrapped on a piece of paper, and their own labor is never tracked anywhere. So they think they're making a profit. But when you actually calculate sweat equity or the ability that they're working for free and waiting for the profits down the track, you realize that maybe this isn't a normal business that stacks up in a traditional world of, marketing and business. And so I think having those acumens, and very similar to myself with all the work that I'm doing, is like, how do we collide those together and find that intersect where we can run businesses and enterprises that really, heal the planet and care for soil and
sustainable.
And even what you said with Sage, where like grow the growers, like instead of, how do we make the growers be better growers, and how do we make farmers be better farmers and more profitable, because then their enterprise grows and they can scale rather than letting the big corporates take all the profits that are on the table,
Correct. That's right. And just on that, to take that another step further and just back to the Africa thing, I'm actually set up a pilot in at one school I've started with, which is in the same place in Bahoma again. I went up to this school, and it's a public school high in the mountains, right next to the Windy Impenetrable National Park where the mountain gorillas are. So a lot of poaching used to go on up there. So in this particular community, they have a lot of reformed poachers. Windy Development Network reforms a lot of poachers in this particular area called Rabona. And so I went up to this school and I went, oh my God, like, how do these children learn in these schools? Like, we have no concept of how spoilt we are. There's no windows, they're just mud bricks, there's nothing on the floor, they got crappy old writing boards, it's atrocious. Anyway, so I approached the school principal and I said, would you guys like to grow food here? And he said, oh, that would be amazing, because the whole village is very poor. And I said, well, look, if you like, I'm happy to set up a pilot and actually set up a food forest at your school.
Wow.
And so we're actually just started that. We've planted hundreds and hundreds of vegetable seedlings. We're planting mango trees, avocado trees, passion fruit as well. So, and some indigenous trees, all on the school grounds. And so this is going to create, obviously, some learning for the children, because it's going to become part of their curriculum. So they learn how to grow food.
Amazing.
It's going to create them some green space, because at the moment it's just dirt, some place where they can run around under shade of trees and so on. And the next, probably most important element of it is that we're actually going to teach them business enterprise skills. So they're going to take the produce to market. They're going to set up their market stall. They're going to have signs about who they are. They're going to learn how to negotiate, how to budget. They're going to learn how to save. So the produce that they sell, the money that they sell, the produce they sell, the money will go back to their next term education, because most of them can't stay at school. They kind of like come and go from school depending on how much money their parents can find at different times.
Wow.
So it's about teaching them how to grow food, but how to get some livelihood skills that actually is transferable. Because most of these children think you ask them what they're going to be and they'll say, I'm going to be a pilot. I'm going to be a doctor. I'm going to be an engineer. And like, it's not going to happen. Like 1 in a million of those children might become one of those things.
Wow.
They're poor. So I kind of like went, I feel like I can teach them something else that's going to be more useful to them and more. So And then leftover produce will obviously go back to families of the school and so on. So that's an exciting project that I'm piloting now, which I really hope to launch across other developing countries, rest of Africa.
That's amazing. I just love that concept because, remembering back when I was at school, we had to think about, Mark had 4 apples and gave Sally 3. How many's left? It's like, well, you can actually learn all that by doing the real apples and selling them and setting a price and understanding about, enterprise and marketing yourself by creating signs. Like there's so many life skills that you're learning just in that one exercise that you has shared, and just being, plant aware to know that what you grew created a profit that then funded my next term education. Like imagine that ripple effect down generations.
I know
of changing that. It's just, woo.
I know, it's exciting.
It's so exciting. So I have to reserve a ticket to Africa next time you go in. So I'm
going in December.
Okay, well let's make this happen. I'm very, very keen from what you're sharing. I'm having to hold back some tears, to be honest, when you're sharing about it because it sounds amazing. So on that note, because I love the whole fact of community bringing and you've shared a lot about community gardens at the moment and the impact that happens, and you built this program to help community gardens. But before we go deeper into community gardens, we're going to take a quick break. So soil lovers, stick with us. Hey there, soil lovers. Thank you for being a great listener to the podcast, but I wanted to let you know of a new and exciting project that I'm working on in 2023. What I found is working with many consultants and business owners and farmers around the world is that they always struggle to find someone who gets soil, that just understands what it's all about, but then layering that with digital marketing and growing their market share. So that's why this year I put my thinking cap on and said, how can I connect my 2 passions of soil and business and marketing together? And that's how I created Soil Connect. That's right, it's a digital marketing agency dedicated to serving soil caring businesses. So if that's you, or you know someone who is serving our soil in a positive way, it could be that you're a consultant. You could have a product that helps our soils get better and better. You could be just a soil lover that's running a keen market garden and wanting to grow the amount of people that buy your produce. It doesn't matter what type of business you do, as long as you are caring for our soils, then we will be a perfect match. Our team are dedicated to helping grow businesses that are dedicated to growing our soil health. So head over to soilconnect.com.au where you can have a chat with me to see what services we can help with you in 2023. I'm so excited to be able to unfold this venture with you, all our listeners on the podcast, and help you spread the word that there is now a marketing agency and digital agency that's dedicated to soil caring businesses. So if that's you, or you know someone, then let's have a chat. Jump on a call, www.soilconnect.com.au. I'll have a chat with you soon. Until now, let's get back to the program. Hello, soil lovers. Regen Ray, you're hanging out with, and Sharlene Cohen. We're talking about community gardens. What has been the biggest thing that you've seen that transforms communities when it comes to community gardens? Because I think sometimes people think they're just a space that someone takes care of, but so much magic happens there. What's been some of the stuff that you've seen happen when community gardens are activated and nurtured?
Okay, I think if you can get, it's about the people, okay? And you don't have to know how to grow food or actually necessarily be interested in it that much. It's about a place, it's about a safe place for people to come together. And, the statistics are so high for loneliness. I think it's 1 in 4 or 1 in 5 people are lonely.
Wow.
And I think community gardens have that opportunity to bring people to nurture the soil, to nurture nature, to play in that space, to be able to chat to the person they're weeding with next door on the weekend bed, in that safe place. It's a gathering place. It's an opportunity. It's really a health and well-being. I would love to see more of these kind of spaces in retirement villages and hospital spaces. Yeah. That's the passion of really where I would love to take it in Australia, is that I think if we could have more of a community garden setting in a hospital or a health system space, it's not only good for the patients and the visitors of the patients and, of course, the staff, it's also good for the people like me as a community person going into that space, because I'm going to mingle with other people, other patients as well that might need a chat today. So
Yep.
it's bringing a lot of people together. And so I'm quite passionate about that space. I haven't actually got to that yet, but that's where I'm very interested in creating that nurturing space.
And I think that's a very valid point because, you know, a lot of people who do go to hospitals or even in like retirement village or, you know, aged caring, they're not really places where, you know, they're not inspiring, they're not healing, they're not, you know, they're just white clinical walls, plain, you know, and it's really, and then with so much research that's coming out now, we say like people who are touching the soil are triggering certain pathways in their brain, and that they are like antidepressants, like smelling soil. You said it before about like putting your hands dirty and smelling it.
I love it.
You know, like there is a reason why we're drawn to that. You know, that smell that happens when it rains, and you know, there's like it triggers something. People just know that smell. You can't describe it. And those are therapeutic benefits. And because we are putting ourselves into little boxes, whether it be a car or an office or a bedroom or a nursing home or a hospital, we're being so disconnected from those things that naturally heal us. And so reactivating those spaces, and hospitals and schools, and they have the room. They've got dead land everywhere.
I know. I mean, the challenge for all of these things, I mean, you know, the community spaces generally are finding it difficult to find volunteers. So that's kind of like across the board right now. So I think that people go, great idea, but who's going to run it? And everyone's time poor and staff poor. And, you know, so these are the challenges. And you usually need, you know, a really good mover and shaker to drive it. So, but I mean, imagine the food also going back into the hospital system for food. I mean, we also know that some of the quality of the hospital food's not as great as we'd like it. So, you know, we know the benefit of food. And I mean, the other bit, you know, going to the farmer's market and buying your local produce. I know that my lettuce is going to last a whole lot longer in my refrigeration that for a week, where if I buy it at Woolworths, it doesn't last as long. So the value you get out of it is not just health values, it's actually financial value as well.
I agree. And so many people don't see that. You know, they go to the farmer's market like, oh, the, you know, cucumbers are 40 cents more or $1 more, but it lasts twice as long, you know, and the amount of food waste that goes in the bin that creates methane, like, you know, methane in the tip, when the rubbish in the waste management system contributes to like the second or third largest methane contribution in between like America and China or something like that. It's like, and this is just what we put in the bin that doesn't get, you know, through a worm farm or a composting heap and doesn't turn back to soil, just goes into landfill and methanes. But yet we've got this massive conversation about the methane that cows produce or things like that. It's like, we as humans produce more than that. We should be banning humans, you know, to some degree.
All for that.
You know, it's like, look, it's very frustrating when you start zooming out and seeing all the dots. And you know, I saw a video last night, and it's something that's happening in America where they've got a board of committee that's all about environment and climate change. And the person asked them, do you know what percentage of carbon is in the atmosphere? Not one of them could answer it. You know, they were like 5%, 6%, 7%. Like, no, it's 0.04%, you know? And it's like, these are the people who are making policies and frameworks for our environmental future. And it's like, come on, like, you know, like, what are we doing by allowing these people to make these decisions that's going to cause us to, you know, not be allowed to drive our car or not allowed to, you know, run certain businesses, yet they don't even know their own facts and figures that they're trying to support. They're so far removed. You know, most of them probably don't have to go and buy their own food either, you know, because they're just living in a different privileged world.
In a bubble.
Yeah.
That's actually a really sore point with me, because it's like even local councils or anybody, they kind of like are writing policy and legislation, and they go out to the public for consultation, but they never listen to it. And the people the people out there, people on the ground, you, me, and the other soil lovers are the ones that are passionate and know what's going on. But the people sitting up in the high places are all ego-driven.
I agree. Yeah, we definitely need to change it, because it can't keep going this way, because I'm meeting more and more people who are frustrated, who I wouldn't even think were frustrated. You know, like, it is really getting to the point where the commons, the most people, the majority, are a little bit annoyed at the financial system, at the decision makers, the government structure, the hierarchy that exists, and goes, it's broken. We need something different. But, you know, I think going into these community spaces and meeting people that are like-minded, it is that whole sense of aloneness where that kind of breaks down a little bit. It's like, oh, there's other people that think like me. I'm not alone in my crazy kind of thoughts. And, you know, there is that commonality that found my people, you know, or I found my tribe, you know, yeah. What people say all the time.
And I think, too, the trouble is with our system, I'm going to compare it to Africa again, and sorry for doing that. But, you know, I just threw it out to the principal and said, can we just put in a community garden, well, a food forest? And he went, yeah, let's make it happen. Where in Australia, you have to jump through hoops to get something. Yep. And there's many people who want to set up community gardens, but you know, there's so many hoops. You have to get DAs and you have to find some land, and it takes years, so people lose energy.
I know. I'm going to call it out. During COVID, we tried to start a community garden in South Yarra, which is a green electorate.
That's right. Nothing
green about the amount of resistance that they put to start a community garden. It was all like, yeah. You got to find private land. Oh, can we get help contacting? Oh, no, privacy, this, red tape, that, jump through this hoop. 2 years. And by the end of it, everyone just said, I'm exhausted.
Yeah.
You know, if it's this damn hard to set up a community garden, then is this electorate really wanting to be as green as they say they are?
Yeah.
You know? And it really annoyed me because it made me realize that here I am voting for certain parties and they're not changing anything.
No,
exactly. You know? And so it's the change. That's why I said at the start, the change starts in your own backyard. You know, forget about the community garden, grow it in your own backyard, activate the street. Then, you know, the more people that you bring into that world, then it's like, oh, well, you can be the finance person, you can be the marketing person, and then you can start the community garden. But that's where guerrilla marketing, you know, guerrilla gardening comes from as well, where it's like sometimes just set it up and maybe, you know, no, you don't need all that red tape crap. You know, ask for forgiveness, not permission sometimes, you know.
Well, actually, I have a story about that because I actually did transfer my verge to actually native grasses, and I did have some,
Yeah, I know.
council issues. So it's like, seriously.
I know. David Holgram from the permaculture movement and his book Retro Suburbia, you know, he's a big fan of like, do it and then see if anyone notices, you know. So, and he publicly says that. And he got sponsored by ABC, I believe it was, to go around and do his little talk around, you know, the Aussie backyard retro suburbia movement. And, you know, government funding dollars were basically saying, redirect the water into your place and like, you know, use grey water and you know, keep it as local as you possibly can. So it was very funny. And that's a great anime video to watch online as well, because it really shows what you can do in your own backyard. And I find it weird because I grew up with that. My grandparents' backyard is literally retro suburbia, but I didn't know it was called that. And I didn't know it was going to become a movement. I just thought that's what everyone's backyard was, you know, a food bowl and kept the water and you had chickens and you made your own sauce and salami and all this other stuff. That was my childhood, you know, and then seeing that people now really crave for that, it's really interesting, you know, to see that that's a gap in most people's, you know. Yeah,
that's right. But then when you get this pushback, like I just had, you know, people get far out. Once again, it's all the energy that gets zapped out of the people that had the energy, you know. And that's what I think needs to change.
Yeah. And that's, you know, it's happening in the tiny house movement as well, where people just, we're putting tiny houses everywhere. Like, come find them, you know. You know, is it a caravan? Is it a building? Like, what is it? You know, is it a storage container? Like, there's all these gray areas of like what it is. But, you know, the more that you do, then it's like crypto. There's so many people in crypto now, they can't ban it, you know, and even if they do, it wouldn't stop. And the same with tiny houses. There's so many tiny houses and camper vans out there now that you can't really ban it or stop it because it's, you know, got legs and just kind of running away. So,
well, that's exactly right. Well, maybe we should just all be going a whole lot harder then, right?
Get mass adoption. Get to mass adoption.
Soil lovers, just get out there and fight for it.
That's it. And so if people don't have a backyard or they're living in apartments, which is a very common thing now, and I'm guilty of that as well. What's your take on, you know, small scale agriculture and, you know, where can people go and get their food or meet the grower in these more small scale? Because I believe that small scale agriculture is going to be leading more of the change that happens, because the big ag companies, they've got contracts, they've got like all this red tape that they need to do to change. So how important in your world is that small scale agriculture movement, where some people might call themselves hobby farmers, but they're probably actually more change makers?
So you're talking like it's cities, or are you talking rural areas, or what? Are you talking apartments, like people living in apartments, or?
Yeah, well, like, people in apartments might not have the ability to grow their own food, so they need to lean more on, say, small scale farmers, like people who are growing, on the outskirts of the cities, not 3 hours inland, but there are a lot of farms around that 1 hour, 1.5 hour drive from cities that are growing really amazing strawberries and peaches and cattle and beef and all that. Like because then a lot of small scale farmers are a bit discouraged because they feel like they're playing with the big people. But really they're, big change makers. Do you spend a lot of time with the small scale growers?
Well, interesting again, Sage, who I'm working with right now, actually has set up a small scale agricultural farm called Stepping Stone Farm.
Ah, cool.
What they're actually doing is they're growing produce and they sell it at the Sage Farmers Market on a Tuesday at 3:00. So this is this local space that's set up for local food. And then they also sell boxes to consumers that can't get to the markets. And then the other part of it is they sell it to local restaurants and so on who want to be part of that local food space. And I think there's big opportunity in that as well, especially if restaurateurs promote that. But the part of what Sage is doing as well, it's more of a training school. It's one of only probably 2 in the whole country where they actually have interns come through. And this is part of the ethos of Grow the Growers. So they basically train interns and then hopefully they go out into the world and do their own small-scale agriculture. So we need to get more people coming through. The challenge is, accommodation, because accommodation is scarce across the country. Interns typically don't get paid. So how do they live? So Sage is actually looking at models for how they actually might have to fund them through grant funding and so on like that to actually get the interns to come in. Pre-COVID, they actually had people lining up to become an intern. Now they're struggling to find interns. And we're not really sure. And we think it's because there's no money. Like they can't afford to move to Maria, for example, find accommodation and support themselves without income coming in. But back to what you're saying, I mean, if we can grow more growers, get more people growing food on the outskirts of the cities and so on, they should be creating their own local food farmers market. And it doesn't have to be sophisticated or anything like that, and it needs to be regular and weekly. And people then start to come and they just basically become the farmers market tribe.
Yeah.
They create a vibe, a bit of music and stuff like that. So it's massively important. I mean, unfortunately, growers do get tired as well. They go through droughts, they go through fires, they go through the COVIDs, They're a business, they're an enterprise. And I think they get jaded. And that's the challenge, I think, for small scale agriculture, is to not get jaded and dejected and have enough capital behind you to be able, and that's when your business models come in and make sure you've got savings and, it's farming. It goes up and down. Business goes up and down. There's good, there's bad.
Yeah. Yeah, that business acumen and really sometimes you should even just be like life skills. Maybe we should be taught more of this at our schooling system, because I've never used algebra, but I would have really liked to know how to manage money better and build better relationships and self-care and things like that. So
yeah, I know. I'm old enough that I was actually taught how to open a bank account. We actually had a little commerce.
Yeah, okay.
But that seems to have gone well and truly from the school system. But
no one knows how to do their taxes. No one knows about any of that stuff. So
exactly right.
The only thing I remember is like we had to write a fake check. I do for some reason remember writing a check. I was like, yeah, this is really handy. And in hindsight, I reflect on that and go, yeah, that taught me how to spend money. Didn't tell me how to save money. That's giving money away. So and there's a common pattern there.
Oh yes, that's Western society.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
So knowing everything that you know now, like, is there something that you would want to pass on to everyone who's listening, all our soul lovers? Like, what's something that you'd want them to kind of like know about or realize or think about over the next couple of days or weeks when they reflect on this podcast? Like, what's a thought that you want them to kind of linger in their mind?
I want people to think. Think about what they're doing, what their actions are. I think, and this is going back a fair way now, when I did my nature-based therapy course, there was a lot of self-thinking and sitting in the garden, watching observing what's actually going on around me. That little insect, the picking up the flower and smelling the lavender in my hand. You know, I think we need time to sit in ourselves and take notice, because it comes back to when it's taken away from you, you notice it, but it's too late. And so I think we need to, you know, it's about self-care, and, you know, and it's all a balancing act, and we all are challenged with that. But when I sit and have my cup of coffee in the morning, I go and sit in my garden chair. So I just sit in my garden and I watch and I observe, and I get up and I go and touch things, I smell things. Yeah. So I think we need to just look at our actions, and the same comes back to the waste side of things. 4 years ago, I didn't have a little organic bin in my kitchen, but our local council thankfully runs free workshops and you get a little bin. Now I'm a bloody Nazi. You know, it's like my husband, it's like, because if you take notice, it doesn't take much. You just have to have time to take notice and not take things for granted. And then you go to Africa and then you far out, you know, you go, what the hell?
Wow.
Doesn't mean, though, that people will come back from there and then just go back into their crazy, selfish, greedy life. I'm sorry, I can be quite passionate about that. But, you know, there's so much we can do in our home space, in our garden, whatever it is, it's just sitting and taking notice of what's important. And soil is where it all starts. It's seriously the bottom up. Our world, good soil, we just explode as humans, as food, as people. Our whole biodiversity just explodes into yum, yum in your tum-tum.
Yum, yum in your tum-tum. I love that. And I agree that, you know, with those small little changes, like when I came to this co-working space that I run this office from, you know, there was just a recycling bin and a general waste bin. And I was like, there has to be, and I went to a local council food waste program. And I don't know if it was that activated me, but then, yeah, we got like little compost bins going here, and I started a worm farm that sits outside, and yeah, I take care of it all, but I put the bins there and they fill up,
right?
You know, like now that there's an option, there's banana peels in there, and there's like tea leaves, and there's, you know, different things, and coffee grounds. But if that bin wasn't there, that was all going into landfill, you know? And so, you know, it's, I didn't ask for permission. I just did it. And then the co-working organizers were like, oh my God, that's an amazing initiative. Like, we love the way that you think, and like, you just do, you know, because that's kind of like the space that I want to live in and operate in, and seeing all those, you know, banana peels in the bin, I was just like, no, there's a problem here, and there's an opportunity to fix that. So there is definitely opportunities everywhere we look, but I think sometimes we've fallen into this world where it's someone else's problem to fix. You know, we outsource it to someone. It's like, oh, well, the space manager should set up a composting bin. And then when they put a bin there, then I would do it. You know, where I was the opposite. I'm like, no, I'm going to put the bin there. You know, and I went to Bunnings. I just bought the bins and I put one downstairs, one upstairs, and they fill up. You know,
amazing, Ray. That's so good.
You know, so
that's what, you know, the Soil Lovers, and you know, every extension of the Soil Lovers family. You know, do those simple little things. You know, I think people get overwhelmed with this whole climate thing and go, oh, I can't change it. I can't change the world. Well, if we all do one little thing every day, even if it's just picking up that piece of paper that's down the road, you know, even if it is just starting a small little organic bin, turn the lights off. You know, it's just about walking around and turn. If we can all just do something little every day, a small act of kindness for the planet, or your community. But it's about acknowledging that and thinking about it in the first place. And then once you've ticked that switch, you notice things, you become very heightened and very observant, and you take notice. And I think that's where I'm at. It's so heightened now. It's like, I just can't let things pass me.
I think of it as soul healing, to be honest. Like once you do these things, your soul is healed, and it's like that becomes your new filter, your new paradigm. And so the same way as you call out some bad behavior from friends, or someone shouldn't drink and drive, you then call out, go, no. It just blows my mind the number of people who just feel it's okay to throw something out the window while they're driving, and it's like, what are you doing? Sometimes I feel like pull it over and like throw it a bit into their thing, but you don't meet fire with fire, type of thing. It's like we've got to inspire change and be the change you want to see, and I love that.
Well, I was that little girl that we used to throw rubbish out of the car window because my dad, we would drive from Canberra back to Wagga, and this is back in the 70s, and that's what we did.
Yeah.
And then they ran the Do the Right Thing campaign, and you had the little plastic bags that you put in your car over your window winder. Yep. And then, Dad became a Nazi. We weren't allowed to throw rubbish out the window anymore.
What's a window winder? What's a window winder? No. Both of some listeners are like, what's a window winder? Don't you push a button?
I already tried.
Good fun. I know it's so quick. It's so funny how some things can just fade away and people don't even know that's the way the things used to be. And I wonder what that would be in the future. People are like, oh my God, you sat on a computer to do a podcast. We just think about it and it creates it itself using AI.
That's what we have at the time, Ray.
Yeah. All that manual work. How did you have any energy?
Yeah. So that's it. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, are you ready to become the voice of the soil?
Always ready.
Yes. Okay. Goodo. So, Sharlene, you have become the soil. You've embodied its powers, its energies, and you are its mouthpiece. What would you say to the 8 billion people that are on our planet at the moment? Big job.
It is. There's a lot of weight here right now. Okay. Don't take the planet for granted. We have to start from the bottom up, as I said earlier. We have to notice, we have to acknowledge, we have to learn. We have to learn from indigenous culture. We have to, and I think that's critical, and I think we're seeing change there. It'll take a long time, but we're moving in the right direction, I think. So I think it's being aware and taking care of what we have and that's most valuable to us. And, as I said, I was always very animal driven and that's always important to me. But now I've kind of like sat back and realized that it starts below where they stand. And they don't have good soil. They don't have new yum, tum food either. So it's just, we expect the soil just to be there and to be living all the time. But it's a critical part of us being on this planet. We just, I don't know how you kind of like, it's like we have to take kids out into the world and just let them play in the big soil world, and they just roll. The kids don't roll around in soil like they did. They don't smell like soil. I mean, like you said, the joy of picking up soil and smelling it, I just can rub my face in it. And when I was in Africa digging these trenches, I was rolling around in it. Like it was so much fun, and it's just amazing. And it's like going in the ocean. It's like the ions that you receive from the salt water of the ocean. Playing with soil, like you said, brings that same amount of energy back. And so, Yep.
Done a great job. Awesome. Thank you. I agree with you. And, in Japan, there's a big movement of, or a standard movement of forest bathing. It's a standard practice. They've got a word for it and everything. When you're feeling down, you go and bathe yourself in the energies of the forest, and the smells and the sounds and everything. And, it's that, wisdom that comes with our elders and our, traditional landowners there. They just got it, well, they didn't get it. They were just transferred that
relying on it.
Yeah. Through generations, and now we've broken that rhythm to transfer that information. And you're right, maybe we are taking some steps in the right direction, but, speaking to a lot of people in that community, a lot of it is smokes and mirrors, and it's all just, hot air and, and promise here and department here. And then 4 years later, it disappears because a new government comes into play and gets swept under the rug. And on the front, it looks like change. And then on the back, it's just same, different name, so.
But in saying that, it's still also, at least we're talking about it, where we weren't talking about it.
True.
So maybe things won't change as quickly or as well as we would like, but it's still always just that awareness. Or some young person, a 17, 18-year-old out there that's going far out, I want to fight for that or whatever. It's just that. Still just talking. Yes, it seems slow, but I think whether we ever see it in our lifetime, well, mine, hopefully yours, right?
We're not sure that we're that different in age, but anyway.
But, and they say that First Nations didn't farm. Well, they do farm.
Yeah.
They farm just in a different way. They nurtured their country because they needed the animals to have the food and so on. So there was always vegetation, so they could hunt. So that's fine. It's a form of farming.
Agreed. Couldn't agree more. Well, Sharlene, it's been so great chatting with you. I think we could talk for hours and hours, which is so good. But unfortunately, statistics say that podcasts need to be less than 45 minutes. Okay. So we're going to have to wrap this up. But how can soil lovers hang out with you more after the show?
Well, obviously I'm on Facebook. It's Urban Rewild. As exactly as it is on Facebook. And then also on Instagram, it's Urban Rewild 3 with the digit 3. And then I do have a website, urbanrewild.com. But I think probably just on social, you'll get a vibe of what I'm doing and my projects in Africa, anything I'm doing locally as well. So probably social media, just reach out. I love to chat, even if anybody just wants to catch up for a Zoom chat and explore what I'm doing anywhere. I'm really open to that. I think the more we can share, and thank you, Ray, for allowing me to share my story and my passions with your other soil lovers, your other 9 million, 8 million, whatever. So thank you for allowing me to share my story because it's very close to my heart. And I was hurt in 2019, but I don't cry anymore, thank God. I do cry, but not every day. I'm happy to tell my story, speak to anybody, about community gardens, food forests, healing spaces, hospital spaces, retirement villages they're thinking they want to do stuff in. Anything to do with that, I'm more than happy to share my energy and passion with them. So send me a message. I'll have a Zoom session, just a chat.
Love that. So great. And, you're very open to have conversations. We've had yarns before and we've met as well. And very open. And it's just always so good to hear what the first time we met, you didn't even have this Africa thing on the cards. And then it's like, we'll get into a podcast and you're like, I'm off to Africa. We're going to have to move. And I was like, okay, cool. But I think everything happens for a reason. And I think the conversations that we had today, if we were to do this months ago, or whenever it was, it wouldn't have been the same, and I think we needed to wait for that experience and then bless the conversation with that new knowledge and that new way of thinking and inspiring change. So thank you for going on the trip and doing all the work and research and sharing it with us. Oh,
anytime, and happy to be involved anytime, Ray. It's amazing what you're doing, and I'm very grateful for the invitation. So
awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Lovers. Yum, yum in your tum-tum.
That's going to be the name of this episode. Yum, yum in your tum-tum. Soil lovers, thank you for sticking with us and having a conversation. As always, until next time, get outside, get your hands dirty, and keep digging deeper into the wonderful world of soil. I'm Regen Ray. I'll see you on the next show. Well, soil lovers, that's enough secrets for one episode. I really hope that you enjoyed all the secrets shared during this conversation. But hey, let's not keep it a secret. Please share this podcast around and make sure that you like it and leave us a review, because that really helps spread the secrets of the soil. Until next time, remember, get outside, get your hands dirty, and keep digging deeper into your soils.